Namaste everyone. I'm Gobinda Puri, M.Phil student, Nepal Open University, Nepal. So first of all, I would like to welcome you all in my short video presentation. I'm going to present on thick translation by Kwame Appia, one of the well-known name in translation studies. So this is a part of assignment assigned by my course facilitator Keshav Sigdel and Pratima Bhattrai. So in this short presentation, I will be covering short bio of Appia and definition of thick translation, thick description, Gricean mechanism, Searle's speech act theory, and literal and literary translations. Let's begin with the first bio of Kwame Appia. Appia was born in 1954 and grew up in Ghana. So he is a Ghanaian British American philosopher, cultural theorist, and novelist as well. So he researched philosophy of language and mind, and also African intellectual history. What is thick translation then? Thick translation is a kind of translation enriched with elaborate contextual description. It describes the context of the source text to the target text. It is a kind of style of translation and which features an abundant use of annotation and glosses. Appiah's idea is particularly based on the idea of thick description, Gricean Mechanism, and Searle's speech act theories. It is also connected with Sapir-Whorf theory, language, and thought. And it is the description of context. So description of context and behavior to make the intended meaning clear in the target text. So thick translation is context dependent, context specific. Context is necessary to understand the meaning of the source text in the target text. So what is thick description then? Thick description is the term which is borrowed by Guilford Geertz from philosopher Gilbert Ryle, and he added some meaning to it. And thick description is towards an interpretive theory of culture. Thick description goes beyond surface appearances to include the context, detail, emotion, and webs of social relationships. It does not only describe the superficial structure of the text, it goes beyond it, and it tries to relate to the context, its emotions, its webs, and relationship with the characters and the text. So it is also known as thick contextualization. That means thick description not only of human behavior, but also the human culture and context. So Geertz argued that if someone winks at us without a context, we don't understand what he or she means. So to understand the meaning of wink, we need to know some background information, some context. So description of the context is necessary here. So what is Gricean mechanism then? Paul Geertz's most influential contribution to the study of language and communication is his theory of meaning and implicature. This is an attempt to find an abundant theoretical, or let's say adequate theoretical account of the meaning of words, phrases, and sentences. It's a relationship between signs and the kind of things they mean, whether intended or expressed or signified. Gricean mechanism is characterized in terms of intentions, intention of the speakers, and the recognition of intention by the listeners. What the speaker is intending to say, that has to be understood by the listeners, or the author's intention has to be understood by the readers. And it is a kind of mutual knowing, mutual understanding, common background, common understanding. So mutually knowing should be the same to understand the meaning. For example, we can see one example here. Johan is in the den or in the kitchen. A says that. And B says, I know, you know this. So when we see from outside, we do not understand the meaning of that. But here, A and B, they are sharing the common culture, common context, common background information, so they understand each other. Let's see another example. Winking at someone. So winking at someone's Ryle's example, the meaning of wink changes as context changes. It differs context to context. So context is necessary to understand the meaning of wink. So Grice introduced two terminologies, conversational maxims and conversational implicator. There are two types of meanings. One is timeless meaning and another one is utterer's meaning. Timeless meaning, which is also called conversational implicator, that is recognized by an competent hearer, no matter what the context is. Even without context, the meaning can be understood. And for example, she is poor but honest. We understand the meaning of this. She is poor but honest. She is a rose. We understand that. We don't need any context there. Utterer's meaning, in the other hand, is conventional. It's pragmatic or context-based that can be cancelled by subsequent utterance. For example, A says, will Sally be at the meeting this afternoon? And B says, her car broke down. See? The statement is quite different, but it is giving the answer of the statement made by A. That means they understand the context. So what is Searle's speech act theory then? Speech act theory is an utterance, or speech act is an utterance defined in terms of speaker's intention and the effect it has on listener information and actions. They are integrated in a speech act. Indirect speech act is the speaker's act of communicating with hearer more than what is actually said. The meaning can be hidden, can be implicit here in indirect speech act. The meaning can be understood by the explanation of the context. It relies on the background information about the conversation shared by both speaker and hearer. That is why the indirect speech act is related to the literary translation. It is related with the sense translation. The meaning has to be understood from the context. For example, could you open the door? So when we see from outside, this is a question. But in fact, it is not a question. It is the request. So direct speech act is a direct relationship between the structure and the communicative function of the utterance. So direct speech act is related with the literal translation, word-to-word translation. We try to maintain the equivalence in translation, in literal translation particularly. For example, can you drive? So can you drive means can you drive, not other thing else. This is the very direct one, direct relationship. Let's go to the literal translation. The aims of literal translation is to produce the same intention found in the original text or source text into the target text. We try to maintain the meaning, intention, and also the equivalence into the target text. Certain circumstances do require linguistic knowledge, but for basic statements like it's a cat can be assessed without speaking English. Translation, namely that it is an attempt to find ways of saying in one language something that means the same as what has been said in another language. So that is literal translation. Here, the terminology prima facie is used. That is based on the first impression, which is accepted as correct until it is proven otherwise. That is what we call prima facie. What is literary translation then? Literary translation that aims to preserve the relations between the text and the literary and linguistic convention with their respective cultures. It is connected with the culture. It is connected with the context. So the aim of translating a literary text is to create a text, transcreation, which shares the central literary properties of the source text. The translated text can't have full equivalence, maintaining formal features of the source text here in literary translation. So it is said that there is no perfect translation. A perfect translation is always a myth. This understanding can't be settled through conventions, but with our literary judgment. The translator uses their own literary judgment for translating. A good literary translation can be performed by preserving the features which make it worth teaching. A work which aims itself to be a literary work. We try to maintain the structure plus its meaning. We try to translate the meaning sense. So now let's come to the conclusion. Appiah, Anthony Appiah equals to Grice plus Grice plus Searle plus Appiah huruf. That means thick translation is equals to thick description of behavior plus thick theory of meaning, that is by Grice, and speech act theory and plus language thought. So combinedly, integratively together, we can translate there. A thick translation can be formed. So in conclusion, we can say that translation should be context dependent so that it helps to understand the culture, conventions, customs, and features of the source culture, and which will be useful for the reader to understand the truth in the words in the target culture, target text. So thank you very much for listening and watching my video. I hope you could understand it.